Thank you so much to those who are watching us on GrassRoots and those who are joining us here at the Mountain Chalet. I'm Allison Bektesh. I'm the Public Affairs Manager with the Aspen Chamber Resort Association. On behalf of ACRA, I want to also thank our sponsors, the Young Professionals Network of the Aspen Board of Realtors, Avanti Productions, and the Rotary Club of Aspen, and all the volunteers who they have brought with them today who are putting this event on. Thank you so much. I'm going to give 60 seconds to Steve Seifert, who is the head of the Aspen Club of Rotary. He's going to do a great example of being punctual, answering in 60 seconds, and the candidates can follow that model. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Alicia. My name is Steve Seifert. I'm the president of the Rotary Club of Aspen. What an honor it is to be here with you today. And I see Debbie Braun is around here somewhere. Hi, Debbie in the back. At any rate, thank you very much. It's a great opportunity for the Aspen Rotary Club to just express the opportunity to put a little branding out there. The Aspen Rotary Club has been in the community for over 50 years. We raise lots of money for community organizations, let alone international community organizations. We're working to fight annihilate polio is one of the Rotary Club, Rotary International's big endeavors, and we're making great progress on that. But we have a club that meets, 50 weeks a year, every Thursday morning, right here at the Mountain Chalet. One of these days, we're going to look for a new place because the Mountain Chalet is going to be renovated. And thank you.
So, as an example, let me go over some rules of the forum. It is moderated, and there are timed answers for our candidates. All of the questions were submitted by members of the sponsoring organizations and ACRA, so we really appreciate those people who thought those through and submitted those. I'm going to begin by introducing you to our moderators this evening. Crystal Logan, to my left here, is the VP of Community Programs and Engagement at the Aspen Institute and Chair of the Board of ACRA. As an elected member to the ACRA Board, she represents the nonprofit business community. We also have with us, to her left, David Cook, the publisher of the Aspen Daily News. We very much appreciate their expertise. They're going to tell you a little bit more about themselves in a moment. But again, this is a forum, not a debate. So we have timed answers. We have volunteer timers who you will hear that timer go off. The candidates will answer in random assorted order in turn. If you do have points that come up, we don't want you interrupting each other. The point is to get our audience to get to know you and to get through as many questions as possible this evening. Please jot it down. We have made time at the end for any of those clarifications, rebuttals, that type of thing. So we want to make sure that our candidates and our audience stay very respectful throughout the evening. So we do ask that all of you keep aware that we are just making sure everyone in this room and the candidates have the best opportunity to introduce themselves to you. And we're so excited that this many people are engaged in these local elections and ready to launch our event. So I will now turn over the program to our moderators, David Cook.
Great, thank you guys so much for being here. It's an honor to be joined by all of you, and on behalf of Aspen, I want to thank you. What's that? Yeah. Is that good? Good. Just for being part of the civic discourse and civic process. Today was a brutally tough day in Aspen, and really reinforces the need to have strong leadership. Crisis response isn't necessarily on the plate of a council, but it certainly is a great reminder that it can happen anywhere. And the power of our leadership will directly be reflected by two of the three of you. And so it's really important. So thank you guys for being part of the process, and more importantly for being here. Again, my name is David Cook. I feel like there's some serious nepotism at play here. I'm a member of Rotary. My business belongs to the chamber, and my mom is the executive director of the Board of Realtors. So I literally have a figure in every single pie that's represented here. But glad to be here, and thanks for having me, and glad to be joined by Crystal Logan.
So we'll start with our first question for you all, opening statements. You each have 1 minute to give an opening statement. And do you want to add your little icebreaker question?
Yeah, let's start with a one-word answer. What's your order from Big Rap? What's your order from Big Rap, and then you have 1 minute each to give your opening statement.
Pesto Rapture. Never gotten anything else.
Bill?
Thank you. Good. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to Rotary. Thank you to YPN. Thank you to ACRA for putting this on. Today was a shitty day in Aspen. Really difficult emotionally for me and for so many in this community. Impacted me emotionally, continues to impact me emotionally. So I'm sorry if I'm not entirely myself, but I will do my best. But I am super appreciative to all of the first responders and the educators in our community who do whatever they can to keep our children safe. And I can never express my appreciation deeply enough for all of you and for what you do. So thank you. From Big Rap, I usually order the Garden of Eden wrap with roasted veggies instead of chicken in there. I try not to eat too much meat during the day, for whatever that's worth. A lot more than one word. So I'm a 40-year-old father of 3. I'm an entrepreneur. I grew up mostly in Toronto. I've been in Aspen about 13 years. I am running for council well, I don't think the first part counted, Harry, thank you though. I'm running for council to bring some more balance and experience to the board and share my perspectives that I've gained through life and through my business experience and my familial experience with the community. And I am not a politician. This is a new endeavor for me. I've never run for any public position before, but I'm very passionate about Aspen and making Aspen the best possible place for all of us and for my children. That's probably my only selfish interest in this endeavor. Thank you.
In order? Thai wrap tofu. Yeah, you guys took the words right out of my mouth. This was a really, really challenging day for our community. And, we're lucky that no one was hurt, but this is a circumstance that I understand. As a kid, I went to a Jewish day school, and we had a number of bomb threats where we had to be evacuated. And the shooter on 4th of July was in our hometown. It's my mom. Luckily, none of us were there, but first shots were right where we sat. I can't imagine what it would be like to be a parent today, and my heart goes out to every single one, including you, Bill. I'm an aspiring parent here too. And it is days like this, more than most, that remind us that we are a community. That no matter what your income is, or when you arrived 2 years or 30 years ago, if you love it, this is your town, and we all have the same fire department, the same police department, and the same representatives. And it's a time to focus on community. And I have a history of putting community first, ahead of my own interest, in action. I've done that on the STR tax, where running an STR company that I built from zero, I supported the highest tax on our council because I believed it was right for our community. I've done it on the lumberyard, where I pushed for more density, lower category and rental units, because it's what our community needs now with the city dollar, even though I will never live there. There's a variety of other ones, but I'm told this is time.
Thank you for having us all here. I'm a third, just really quick. Obviously, today was a very emotional day, and I'm very happy that everyone was safe. And then I'm gonna jump right in. I plan on talking mostly about business-related topics. So I just want to say, when I first moved here, my first job was actually assisting nurses at the rescue lounge, and I immediately started going to Big Rap. I felt at home immediately. To this day, Babs is a great friend. She's been supporting me through this campaign. If you go there now, you'll see my campaign chocolates there. I hope you grab one. And then beyond that, in the business community, I just wanted to, supporting local business is so important to me. And if you support local business will support you. People I wanted to shout out that I'm not even sure if they're here are Kenny and Robin Smith when COVID hit, and they did the donation for the restaurants. I thought that was one of the most admirable things I'd ever seen, and was great for the locals because I was able to eat at some of these restaurants, and great for the community that they were able to sustain themselves through it. And even in my short tenure here, we've lost places like L'Osteria and Jimmy's, and there's nothing I love more than being greeted by Fabi at L'Osteria, if you guys know him. Thankfully, he's at the fire department still. And to wrap up my opening statement, I just want us to all work together, like I said, because we need to work with our business community to like maintain our downtown core and maintain the vibrancy that I hope to see in this community going forward.
Great. Thanks, guys. Our first question this evening is about housing, and we'll start with you, Bill. Each of you will have 1 minute to respond. Do you see us at a point where the only housing option for the workforce is government subsidized housing? What are some other solutions you've thought of?
I don't think that government subsidized housing, which isn't a term that I like to use because there's not really a lot of alternatives in Aspen for the vast majority of people. It's a workforce housing program that is critical to the success of our community. I think, again, for the vast majority of people, it's essential. And what we need to lean into is ways to incentivize the private sector to help get our community what we need and what we want, and not try to rely on it as a bureaucracy to bring that, to bring more housing to the table. So yes, I do agree for the vast majority of people, workforce housing and our incredible program under the umbrella of APSHA is critical and makes up so much of the fabric of Aspen. But there are a few that will be able to be meaningful members of the workforce in the community that can live in free market. It's getting more and more difficult each day, of course.
Great, thank you. Skippy.
Same question? Yeah, look, the trends have been clear. What started as a program that initially was just for a lifty or a dishwasher, as prices have increased, means that more and more people fall into that bucket. Will there always be a non-zero number of workers who could afford free market housing? Yeah, but that number is diminishing. It's not a workforce housing program. It may have initially begun as that, but whether we like it or not, this is a community housing program. This program houses workers, which need to be the first priority, but it also houses children, and it houses retirees. And that's the reality that we're in, and that's what a community is. And if we want to maintain a community, we need to find ways to adapt to the reality that we're in. And this council has taken significant steps with a 14-point strategic housing plan that holistically looks at housing, bringing together everything from what we used to do. Is that my time? I'll come back to it.
I'll jump right in. The free market does seem untenable at this point for most workers in this valley. I commend the city council. Last night, one of their successes was a program, Rocky Mountain something, but it incentivizes buy downs, even down valley, for people to buy a home and in exchange for a deed restriction. Beyond that, when it comes to losing our middle class, I think it's about making sure that the categories don't limit us from being able to make more money in this community, and that we maintain the housing that we have so that people can actually live here, grow up here, and families can endure here. So that's my short answer to that.
Awesome, thank you. I'm going to ask a question to the three of you as well. When possible, some of these are yes or no, and I'd love to start with that yes or no, if possible. I want to give as much context to people in the audience that are watching as possible. And when we use explanations for answers, sometimes it's difficult to really sink your teeth into it. So the next question is for you all. I'm going to start with Skippy. Would you support allowing Aspen-based businesses to be the purchaser of homes for their employees? So a master lease, master ownership situation.
That's already happening. Yeah.
So yes?
Yeah, it's already happening.
I mean, if there's anything you think about the solution, it's as It was a question that was submitted because of the lack of workforce housing.
Look,
so it's certainly not happening in earnest.
Sure.
But
No, I mean, there's a number of projects where it is happening, and some people have concern about that. But the reality is, I won't say the first time, but there are a number of businesses that want to get involved in solving the housing problem. And that's a net positive. So we need to be working together to do that. And we should be bringing in every partner, for-profits, nonprofits, other government agencies, and we're starting to do that. The Forest Service is a great example of a project where that's starting to happen. We've had conversations about doing a specific number of units at the lumberyard about that. I've put forward a proposal for a development-neutral model for housing without new development that specifically puts dollars in the hands of the development community, businesses, and others, so that we can deliver housing without having to expand the donut hole and dissolve community. And I think all those are good ideas. We're going to need all hands on deck.
Great, thank you. Sam?
Yes. The only issue with that obviously becomes when your housing gets tied to your work, and just making sure that if you do end up in that housing, that you understand the situation you're in, so you don't feel like you're about to be evicted if you start hating your job. Like, know what you're getting into, but if you know what you're getting into, then that's fine.
Bill?
Yes, the city has owned its own housing for a long time, and has lived by a bit of a double standard by not allowing other businesses to own employee housing units. So the school district has done it more recently and has done it in a big way more recently. And I think that if we put certain guardrails in place, like, for example, if your employment terminates on either side of the coin, you have a certain amount of time where you have to, required a certain amount of time before that you have to leave that unit. I don't know what the right amount of time is yet, but it would be unreasonable for someone to be able to be kicked out of their unit the day after they quit or get fired. So I think that's a great way to create new housing, is by partnering with the private sector and to incentivize the private sector to do what they are better at than the bureaucracy, and to get us more workforce housing units that we need.
Thank you. I think we're a little bit short on this section. Those, just to be perfectly clear, because I don't know the answer to this and I follow the issue very closely, but the school district, as an example, those aren't managed by APSHA, the ones that they're purchasing, correct?
So there are 80 separate HOAs that make up the APSHA system. APSHA manages a small portion of those directly.
But I mean the ones that the school district are actively buying up over in Rivers, like on River Avenue, and those are not being managed through APSHA. Do I
I can't
understand that
speak to
correctly?
those specifically.
Okay, thank you.
I don't believe so, but I can't say for sure.
Okay, our next question, I'll go to you, Sam, first. You each have 1 minute for this. Would you consider setting aside rental stock for specific employee types, like nonprofit, seasonal, healthcare, seniors, et cetera? And how would you prioritize various sectors or community members in that scenario?
Very tough question, because it's a dangerous game to get into, to tie someone's work to their housing, especially in that rental market. So my real short answer to this, again, is it really depends. It depends what the parameters are that are set up so that the system actually works for that. But I don't want anyone in this community living in fear that if they quit their job because they're being harassed or something like that, that they're going to lose their housing. So in theory, it is a great idea and something that I absolutely would support if the parameters were in place that actually make it make sense.
Thank you. Skippy?
Yeah, I started working towards senior housing in 2014 with the Next Gen Commission because we saw what was coming, and here we are. There are a variety of different vocations and phases of life that are part of the Aspen community. And if we want to be a community, we're going to have to serve all of those. So we have started the process of bringing those in locally and regionally with the First Regional Housing Authority. And I think that work needs to continue. And of course, as always, we need to be smart and do the due diligence to make sure that those rules and policies are efficacious and they're set up to learn over time. Because as we know, there are always unintended consequences to any action. And so it's our obligation to be ready to pivot when we learn more.
Clearly a prickly subject, but my fear is that we will not have teachers and nurses and other critical members of our community if we don't start to think about this. And I don't have the answers. I think we need to think really critically about it. I use Peloton as an example of what might happen in our changed world, our post-COVID world. You know, previously a fitness instructor could teach 40, 50 people in a room at a time, and now they can teach a class that serves 40 or 50,000 people. And I fear that teaching could go online and it could be much more lucrative for teachers. This is just one example of many, but I think if we don't start thinking about this and talking about it and putting good parameters and guardrails in place, we might be in trouble. So it's very difficult to identify which members of the community are most critical to our community and most at risk. But I'm fearful that if we don't solve the housing equation for them, we'll be in trouble.
Okay, last question on housing. Well, I'm going to start with you, but start with rapid fire. If you have a group of friends in town, where are you taking them to opera?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say Hops, which is a restaurant that I started many years ago, but unfortunately it's no longer there. That was always my favorite, and I started it for a reason. But out of Ajax Tavern in the Sun is always a great spot.
Wonderful. The question that is on the sheet that was submitted was, do you own, rent, or do you own in the free market, or do you own in APSHA? Where do you currently live? Yeah, that's the actual question.
I own in the free market.
Thank you. Skippy, if you had a group of friends in town, where would you take them to opera?
Probably my house at this point, which is pretty sad. Next question.
Same question.
Rent free market.
Rent free market. Thank you.
You guys are missing one. Highlands Ale House. Nothing more fun than that after skiing, doing a bowl lap. And I own in the free market.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to traffic and its impact on our businesses and the workforce. First and foremost, how do you commute to your job currently? Skippy, I'm going to start with you.
I walk as much as I can in the core, but I do run a vacation rental business, and so when I'm heading out to Snowmass, I drive.
Great. On the heels of that question, when was the last time you rode in RAFTA?
On my way to Highlands for my last bowl lap.
When was that?
Probably 2 weeks ago, campaign season.
I'm gonna pass that to Sam.
Last time I rode in RAFTA was this weekend to Aspen Mountain to ski, and I work from home, so just get out of bed.
Easy commute?
Yeah, easy commute.
Nice.
So you may have seen me riding my ridiculous rig around town. I have a fat tire, studded tire e-bike, which I try to use as often as possible. But that doesn't mean I'm not aware of when and how important it is to be able to drive and drive your own vehicle throughout town. We have 3 young children, and not having a vehicle and not being able to move around town easily is not an option for us. And that's true for a lot of other families, and it's true of a lot of other business people. I took RAFTA yesterday to Snowmass to meet some of my friends and relatives that were in town for a quick bite.
Great, thank you.
Okay, our next question, 1 minute for each of you, and we'll start with you, Bill. No one wants to be stuck in traffic, whether you're trying to get to school, the airport, or into town. What is your vision for improving mobility in and out of Aspen?
Yeah, so this is something I've focused a lot about during this campaign. This traffic sucks. It's impacting all of our quality of lives, and we can improve upon it, and we can improve upon it meaningfully. This is not impossible, and it doesn't require, I don't believe, a very disruptive $250 million solution, plus $1 million solution that is being advocated for by the city right now. I think that by making RAFTA fares free for all trips that originate in or terminate in Aspen, that will get people out of their cars and onto the buses. I think that by engaging with national or international traffic engineer experts and providing them with a variety of ideas that I've listed on my website, I think we can improve traffic flow meaningfully. We're never going to solve traffic coming in and out of Aspen at peak hours, but we can improve upon it meaningfully, and that will resolve so many other issues. I think it requires creativity and problem solving.
Thanks, Skippy.
Just to do a little bit of cleanup, the city is not advocating for a solution in particular at the entrance. If you were at the work session last week, you would know that we didn't extend funding to move forward that design. So you may not be practicing as a politician, but you've read the playbook. As to the vision for downtown, look, when I talk to everybody, we all say we miss the same things. We miss the businesses that we can, like Hops, where we can get together and commune, a sense of place, somewhere that we can afford to actually go to see our friends. We don't want chaos and traffic. We don't want interaction between bikes and cars. We want to have peace. We want to have physical and mental health. And so what I've been advocating for is a transition of our downtown core in the original 1960s vision that came from Joe Edwards and Dwight Shellman's platform. Use the existing land that we own as a community to transition from the use of streets, parks, and others to the uses we want, and then we can have the transportation solution that fits that need, but we should know that first.
Sam.
Yeah, it's a very nuanced question. It's not a one-size-fits-all. The thing I look to the most is the 2017 Aspen Institute Mobility Lab. They had 5 different solutions there. One of them I truly believe in is more HOV and HOV enforcement. A lot of people can't get on the bus, but they can get in a car with another person. So enforcing that and incentivizing that, I think, is a great deal. We have a parking problem in town. And what I mean by that is people need their cars. They need to come into town. But we don't have enough parking spots to have like an unrestricted 4-lane in the town. And our design is so that we do have traffic coming into town to try to get people to not come into town. One of the things I advocate for is to fix at least traffic going out of town so that, you know, especially people in the city can easily leave the city, especially in an emergency, but on a daily basis. And it's not as big a deal if people are going down valley when they're leaving, but it is a difficult thing to fix traffic coming into town, and then we have a parking problem, and then you get into people who want to put like a parking garage underneath Wagner Park, which would change the usage and cause so much disruption, so not always the easiest thing to work with.
All right, so Bill, I'll give you a chance. I'll give each of you a chance, 30 seconds to just add to what you said. Any actual more solutions, you know, what lens are you looking at the problem through? Any other final comments about mobility?
Well, first of all, Skippy, I didn't say that you said anything. The city advocated on behalf of the preferred alternative. So listen to my words. Secondly, again, touching on what Sam said, the Mobility Lab was a brilliant collaborative effort with incredible people participating in that effort. And great ideas like We Cycle in Downtowner came out of those efforts. And there are other ideas in there that I think we can continue to build upon and have positive effect for our community.
Skippy.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just add that I think to empower a transition of the core, you need to have ample parking outside of town that's free. You need to have free on-demand electric transportation coming in on a regular basis and around town, and you can do that. It can be on call, so rather than circling for an hour to not get the parking space you want, you can be assured to get to exactly the store you want to go when you want to go with your bags, babies, and dogs. And I think the critical lesson from the Mobility Lab is we have to work with the business community from day one to design that successfully.
Sam.
I appreciate the idealism there. I take a much more pragmatic approach. When I went out door knocking and talked to most people, one of their biggest issues was parking in town and how the Living Lab really made them angry, honestly, when they couldn't find a spot. I don't believe in an all pedestrian downtown core because it sort of leaves a lot of people out in the cold, a lot of seniors. I was in physical therapy, thankfully, with an upper body injury during that, but a lot of people were coming in 5-6 blocks away on crutches because they could not find a parking spot. So it's just something that is definitely needed, but we want to increase biker and pedestrian safety in another way.
Thank you. Sam, I'm actually going to start with you on this one too, so you're back up, buddy. We've done our best to not re-ask questions you guys have already been beat down with in the other events and all the stuff you have gone through. So this question is a little recycled, but in some capacity, you've all expressed concern with the preferred alternative. I don't think it even deserves that name anymore. If it is, if the route of Aspen, or the choice is to rehab the current Castle Creek Bridge, how would you propose, or I guess, let's see, I'll just read it. If the existing highway bridge is to be rehabilitated, rebuilt, or expanded, how do we get through the potentially years-long traffic crunch while the construction is underway? Sam, you're up.
Yeah, that's the $250 million question, because I don't think any of us have the answer to that. I've talked to many concerned citizens about that who would like to see the current bridge replaced, but when they replace a current bridge, usually they put it next to where it currently is, and that's obviously not an option. People talk about the Army Corps of Engineers being able to build a bridge in like a month or two. I'm not sure if that's an option either. It really is the difficult question. As like I talk about the flaws of the preferred alternative, I think it's like untenable, especially at this point. I don't know if we want to go through Marolt, but I have not heard a study or anything done that makes me know for a fact that replacing the current bridge is tenable, but I would definitely try to fight to know if that is the case.
Thank you. Skippy?
Can you restate the question?
Yes. If the existing highway bridge is to be rehabilitated, rebuilt, or expanded, how do we get through the potentially years-long traffic crunch while construction is underway?
Yeah, Sam's right. No one has the specified answer for this. I tend to think we build tunnels under oceans, so these tend to be political and cost issues more than engineering problems. And the community still has a lot to weigh in on. I'm hearing a lot of differential ideas, and some include replacing that bridge, some include expanding it, some include a yes and, where you could have a phasing approach. There are a variety of different ideas out there. The downside is they will all come with time. And to me, one of the, or if not the most important reasons for this project is safety. Climate change means that it's going to get increasingly likely, frankly, that we need to have emergency egress. And so I think knowing this is going to take a long time to get right, and let's get it right, we also need to be working on a plan in the interim to make sure we're not waiting to deliver an efficacious solution until that's settled.
Bill?
So I'm not a traffic engineer, but I'd like to work with some great traffic engineers on this, and I have a couple of ideas. And one is improving Power Plant Road, potentially putting a bridge over the power plant to make that a more functional route, and also improving the pedestrian bridge over Maroon Creek. And to be clear, that would only be used during the course of construction and as an emergency egress solution in the future, in my mind at least. So I think that would provide a lot of relief during the construction. I also think that there's accelerated bridge construction techniques that are available to us now, and I think that this could be a good opportunity for Aspen to be a leader on a new technology and an experimental approach. Again, I'd like to discuss it with people who actually know what they're talking about. I've never contemplated road construction or bridge construction prior to this in my life, but I think we can figure it out.
Thank you. I'll go to you first, Bill, and then Skippy, and then Sam. The Aspen Area Community Plan was created by input from Aspen residents, and it's the policy document that directs long-range planning. What portion of the plan resonates with you, and how will you use the plan to guide your policy decisions should you be elected?
I think the AACP is a good document. I think that there's a lot of good intention in there. I don't think that it is a be-all, end-all, and I think that a lot of my decision-making has to be informed by my personal experience and my personal gut feelings on certain things. I do think it's good as a general guideline for how we should think about Aspen, but I don't think that it really can help us solve each issue independently, and I don't think that it addresses a modern Aspen world. I mean, the last update was done quite some time ago. So,
yeah, the AACP was removed as a regulatory document some years ago. So it is a guiding document at this point, and I think that's a mistake. Whenever we get into, which is frequent, difficult decisions where there are not winners on all sides, you go back and consult that. And the wisdom in that document, the true spirit of the community in that document is really sensational. And it is a great guide. but it also needs an update. When it was written, 50% of our voter rolls, from that time are no longer here. And so I think we all deserve a voice as a community into the direction of our future. And I think it is time that we pick that back up and give everyone a voice, bring everyone to a table, no matter what industry you're from or what your experience has been the last 3 years, to equitably participate in our future. I think that would be a very welcome exercise.
Yeah, definitely second the part where the last time it was updated was 2012, I believe. So I think it should be updated every 10 years. So I think we're due for another update. However, to answer the question that you asked, I would point to the climate and housing goals that are definitely the best guardrails. We are a mountain community based on ecotourism. So being a leader in climate change, being a steward for that is very important. I'm not saying we do that at that is the foundation of our economy. So that's just very important, and I'm glad it's in the AACP. And then on the housing side of things, we're not a community if we don't have housing, if we don't house our workforce. You just go to the AACP and you think, what if nobody lived here that actually worked here? What type of community we would be? So I really appreciate the guiding principle of the AACP for having a set number of how many people we hope to have actually live here and be a part of this community.
Okay, great. We actually have a space for follow-up there, but I don't really sense any need, so I'm going to move on. Unless anyone has, if you feel the need for 30 seconds, please, you have 30 seconds to follow.
I think I would say that collaboration with the incredible resources, and by resources I mean experienced, intelligent people that we are so blessed to have living in this community, has been lacking, and that can be targeted collaboration. That can be bringing people into a room and truly considering their perspectives. That can be as valuable as a 12-year-old document, 11-year-old document, I'm sorry, as anything. So that's where I think that a lot of more informed decisions could come from as well.
Did I follow up, Scooby?
Yeah, I had a follow-up to Sam, but now I have a follow-up to that. Can I do both or just one?
You have 30 seconds. You can do whatever you want. You can do jumping jacks.
I'll just follow up. I think Bill is right, but I think it belies the facts. I can only speak for myself. I have responded to every single email from every person since I got in office. I have sat down with everybody, including Bill, for hours to talk about things. I've sat down with Elizabeth Melius. No matter what the incoming looks like, I have listened and I have brought that into policy. So that is actively happening currently.
Sam, no need? Okay, cool. This is an important question. Bektash only gave us 1 minute each for it, but you do have a 30-second follow. The question is, what ideas do you have for how Aspen can create a more business-friendly environment? And Bill, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, so I've started quite a few businesses in Aspen, so I know what it's like. Everything from restaurants to a title and escrow business to real estate development work. It's challenging, but part of that challenge makes sense. Ensuring that the business community adheres to the high standards of Aspen, and I'm glad we have high standards, is important. There's also unnecessary bureaucracy involved there. And I think that a liaison for the business community in the city staff could be very valuable. And I think that reminding our staff, who does a wonderful job, but reminding them that it is critical that they really help and try to serve our business community and ensure that businesses can thrive in Aspen is really, really important, and it would be short-sighted not to do so.
Sam Rose?
Yeah. The second what Bill said, more collaboration I think is needed. When I talk to business leaders, when I was out door knocking and going to their places of work, they just did not feel heard, even if they went to these meetings. And to second that, some of the things that they talked about were restrictive policy in the permitting process makes it unaffordable for any big rap to come in, because Gucci and Prada, and when they're loss leaders and when they're selling bags that cost, I have no idea, that's the business model we have here in Aspen. So to create a different business model, you need to have affordable places to put them. And second to that, when I talk to people like Babs at the Big Rap, she talks about if you want affordable, you usually need higher volume. And if you want higher volume, you need more parking restrictions and maybe more like 15 to 30-minute parking to actually help get the volume needed to actually sustain a business here that matters. And the second part, I would say, is what the city can do, which is hopefully we can do affordable food and beverage at the Armory, if that makes sense. I think that would be a real wonderful thing for this community to have that gathering space and to have a place to eat that's affordable.
I think I speak for all of us when I say we want to see your Gucci purse collection. But in the meantime, Skippy. See it right here.
That's funny. Yeah, I appreciate that. And I'll just say that, the adding parking in front of a store solution only works if your store only wants one customer, right? That's not a holistic solution. Look, let's call it what it is. The relationship between the city and businesses is strained at best, and that's really unfortunate. This is just my view, but what I see is a community that was really afraid of growth back in the 70s and 80s and put up barriers to growth that showed up as barriers to business. And the relationship festered. And I think it's our responsibility to fix that, because now we're in a position where we recognize, wow, these businesses have not been treated well. They've disappeared, and this is to all of our detriment. And so now it's all of our responsibility to get in and create solutions that help local businesses, existing ones, gestate new ones, and get in the game. And Bill's idea is a good one, which is why this council has already done that, and we're hiring for that position right now. We have put on ComDev's work plan at the top this year to work on process around business permitting and development permitting for that reason. I personally advocated very specifically to bring business leaders and developers into that process so we can use their expertise.
Very brief 30-second follow-up if anyone would like to. We'll just go in the same order there. Go ahead. Sure.
I think I just want to put out there how much I appreciate Aspen's business community. Aspen is not always the most lucrative place to engage in business, and it's very challenging, and the stakes are high. Risk reward can be there, but it's not always there. And I'm appreciative for people who do conduct business in Aspen and choose to live here. And I think it is incumbent upon us to make it easier for them.
I go back to the ironclad nature of just our permitting process in the city. Lucci's, the basement to nowhere, is finally becoming a restaurant again, which is pretty nice that they finally came to an agreement. But when we are so restrictive about what we do with our spaces, then we also make it restrictive to actually have like affordable spaces to have. The city has like a second tier set where like basements and second floors are supposed to be like cheaper for like affordable businesses, but a lot of them like end up being empty because there's no wiggle room for the first floor operator to end up on the second floor too. So you kind of got to be careful with policy as far as making sure it actually works for everyone.
Yeah, so that policy came from a previous council, and as far as I know, there have been no buildings delivered that have that product. So the answer is we don't know. I'll just put a little bit of levity, I guess, into the conversation, which tends to be doom and gloom, and it's just to remind everybody, as an STR, a business professional, we're having the best year financially we've ever had. Other STR companies are doing the same. The real estate industry is having, not record, but just off the peak record. Our sales taxes are up, and yes, part of that, of course, is inflation, but relative to history, and our credit rating is at an all-time high, and all of those things have improved under this council and over the last 4 years.
So much levity.
Maybe I should say positivity.
Thank you. Staying on that same theme, and I'll start with you, Bill. How familiar are you with the challenges facing our business community? And give us some examples. And what can City Council do to assist businesses in Aspen without sacrificing community values?
There are a lot of challenges with doing business in Aspen, and I know it firsthand. The most obvious one is employee housing and availability of a workforce that allows you to do business here. That requires the whole community coming together and really, I believe, partnering with the private sector to leverage the resources that they bring to the table so that we can increase the amount of affordable housing and do so by more efficiently and more effectively leveraging both our emotional and our financial capital in doing so. I think optimizing the existing housing program will go a long way too. But the challenges are numerous, and every business has their own challenge, whether it be parking, access, employees. Again, I've experienced many of them myself. It's not the easiest place to do business, and I recognize that.
Skippy.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time talking to business owners. I'm not a business owner, but I run a business that I started from 0 to $1.5 million in revenue this year in 5 years. Before that, I was a co-founder of a nonprofit that supported the entrepreneurial community here. We opened Aspen's first co-working space. We did our first Aspen Accelerator program. So yeah, I mean, the issues are not obscure to anyone, right? Housing, cost of doing business, process, these things make it incredibly challenging. We rent the basement, kind of caretaker unit from a local business owner. We hear about it all the time. And, I and this campaign are the only ones putting forward new solutions to housing, literally the only campaign. I have been a voice pushing for the business community throughout processes, not always successfully, but I think we are making progress as evidenced by recent work on ComDev's work plan. And I know that with either of these two gentlemen, we'll be better suited to do that, frankly.
I would go affordable housing. I don't believe a vacancy tax is the way to achieve affordable housing, but I think there are many other options to do that. As far as affordable housing will help businesses, they need workers, fixing our traffic problems so that workers can commute successfully down here. Why would you commute to Aspen if you can make similar amount of money in Glenwood? So it's about that incentivizing. And then not being so complex. We talk about, this is the business forum here, but a lot of times, every time I talk to a business, they just want the guardrails set up. They want it to be not so complicated. Things change all the time. You put in, as another example that's just so easy, is you put in the living lab, it was 6 weeks late, you did it during the July 4th, and all the business owners voted it down, but they kept it up through the end of November, which to their anger and chagrin. You have to work with the business community to set up proper guardrails that attain the community values, but don't have that negative effect that have everyone up in arms.
Thank you. This question, we have a minute each. It was a submitted question. I feel like it allows a little bit of a general question, but I would love to be as specific as possible. Would you say you're pro-growth, and what does responsible development in Aspen look like to you? Skippy, we'll start with you.
Sure. No, I would not consider myself pro-growth. I think we have an incredible community here, and I think that kind of across the board, the feeling is one of decline. And that doesn't have to be the case. We are the most highly resourced community, financially, in people, in expertise, anywhere in the world. I think our focus should be on community right now and rebuilding and re-enlivening what we have, taking that vision that was given to us from the 1960s and putting new tools to it so that we can give our kids and our grandkids a community that is better than ours. That is within our reach, but it's going to require all of us to jump in and do the work. And it's also going to require new ideas. It's not going to require a list of grievances. That's not going to get it done. That's not what leadership is. Leadership is not blaming and pointing while saying nothing new. Leadership is doing the difficult thing of putting new things out and willing to take criticism while listening, knowing that we'll ultimately get to a better condition for all of us.
Go ahead, Sam.
Absolutely. Well, first off, I don't know anyone else that supports the vacancy tax. I've gone around to many doors and they all are very much against it. I've never seen it work anywhere except where people actually sell their homes, but no one would ever actually sell any free market homes to a working local.
Just to be clear, this isn't about the vacancy tax.
Oh, I know, but he looked me direct in the eyes on that one. But as far, repeat the question then?
Yeah, sure. Do you consider yourself pro-growth, and what does responsible development in Aspen look like to you?
I don't consider myself pro-growth. I really don't see that much growth happening here. The only growth I sort of see happening is in the affordable housing realm. And I see that happening. I was at the work session last night. City Council is making great strides as far as affordable housing goes. It takes a lot of time to actually end up with results, but the results will eventually be there with things like the lumberyard, working with the development community to get some of our existing infrastructure done, and then maintaining what we currently have. These are the things, the pragmatic solutions that will end up with more housing and maintaining our current housing that don't need to be ideas that don't necessarily work.
Thank you.
I wouldn't call myself pro-growth, but growth is happening. And it's happened because of COVID, and it's happening because of development that's in the pipeline in the community to provide more workforce housing units for our community, which we need. So we need to be smart about the growth, whether we like it or not. It's happening, and it has happened. So how do we leverage the resources that we have at our disposal to be smart about it, to incentivize the behaviors and the outcomes that we want rather than penalize at every single turn? That's what we have to be contemplating, and that's the approach that we need to have towards growth, because it has happened and it's going to continue to happen.
Thank you. We'll start with you, Bill. The cost of commercial rent in Aspen is a barrier to locally owned and locally serving businesses. Are you supportive of controlling commercial property rents in any way?
I am not. Communism does not work, and these kind of concepts are communistic, and so is a vacancy tax. I am not supportive of that in any way, shape, or form. But that does not mean that we cannot use the resources at our disposal, like the Armory, to convert that into a food hall that would provide a reasonable opportunity for people to do business and give us the types of businesses that we are missing. And it wouldn't prevent us from incentivizing private landlords and real estate developers to create the outcomes that we want. So if we want small, locally owned, locally serving businesses, let's incentivize that behavior. Let's not penalize our way towards that behavior. Let's incentivize it. And then we don't have to be communists to do it.
Skippy?
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. The cost of commercial rent in Aspen is a barrier to locally owned and locally serving businesses. Are you supportive of controlling commercial property rents in any way?
I'm not in support of controlling commercial free market property rents in any way. I do think we have an opportunity to use city-owned land to have a affordable business zone. The Armory is one possible solution. City streets or walking malls are another. I would not see that as something where the city should set rents or the city should directly manage at all. We are a community that is blessed to have a higher concentration of highly successful entrepreneurs and business people of maybe anywhere in the world. And so I think there should be an independent body that does that, set and oriented to community results. I also think that taxes generated from that district, and I've worked with some business owners about this, could also be given as a subsidy to those existing free market homed businesses so that we make sure that the playing field is level and they have a chance to survive.
I wish there was a district that was owned by the city that could happen, but what we do have is the Taste Your Space and the Armory, and hopefully those two can become affordable food and beverage. Subsidies are meant for like non-profit businesses, aka childcare, but when we do subsidies for things like free market commercial, all we do is undercut the Big Raps and the Grateful Delis of the world and just make it an unfair place. Rent control comes with its own set of problems, and I believe government is just meant to set the guardrails and do the best we can on that sort of situation, because free market capitalism is free market capitalism.
Thank you. We're running about 5 minutes over, and I want to get through these. I feel like we're having a really great discussion, so let's just be mindful of the time. Employee retention is a concern for our businesses. What are your ideas for creating a vibrant community given the current ecosystem facing young professionals and young families in our community? And most specifically, what do you propose as a way to attract and retain a workforce? Skip, you can start.
Sure. Housing is obviously the linchpin of all of that. And so since it's come up, I'll use the opportunity to talk about a vacancy tax. There is a great example of this working in the city of Vancouver. 2017, they adopted what is known as a second home tax. A homeowner has to declare on a legal affidavit if the home is a primary residence, if it is rented to a worker, or if it is a vacant investment home. If it is a vacant investment home, they have to pay a small tax based on the assessed value, and there is a random compliance check, and if you're caught lying, you pay more. 3 years into that, 20% of their vacant properties were filled by at least one qualified worker, and they had raised $115 million towards housing, okay? If we did the same thing here and got the same uptake, and they're different communities, and we may not, but if we did, we could build 3 lumber yards in 3 years without a single brick and save, at this year's construction cost, $1.2 billion that we're never gonna have. If we don't consider that, we're crazy.
Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, we're not Vancouver, so that's a really tough one to sell. The way to attract and retain people here is to have housing for them, but also housing where families can eventually live. I'd like to see the lumberyard be more a Burlingame ranch-style housing. If we have more housing where families can move into, then it's more attractive to actually stay and commit yourself to this community. That's definitely the biggest thing. On top of that, I think this place sells itself. So if you have the housing, you're gonna stay because it's the best place on earth to live.
Yeah, piggybacking on what Sam said, we do have a vibrant community. We have an incredible community. And I'm so appreciative of that, and that's why I choose to live in Aspen. I am not forced to live in Aspen. That being said, nobody is going to be more creative on how to recruit and retain employees than business owners. And so I don't think that it's the government's place to figure out what the right solutions are. Obviously, housing plays a role in that equation, but I think the community is an incredible place to live for people who appreciate it, and we want people who appreciate it living here, of course. For employee retention efforts.
Thank you. We'll start with you, Sam, on this one. What is an appropriate visitor volume for Aspen? Do you see a conflict between the tourism economy and quality of life in Aspen?
That's a tough one. I don't know how you put a number on that, honestly, because we've restricted short-term rentals, and we go through Christmas week where we have full capacity. More people in town, more sales revenue. To me, it's not putting a number on that such issue as it is about using it to our advantage. If we're gonna have tourists come here and we're gonna have people visiting, I appreciate what the chamber does where they know the responsibility. I love that Instagram has tagged responsibly, take the Aspen pledge so we don't get overrun with certain areas. And I'd like to just see the taxes generated from having visitors here go towards the causes that we need in this community.
Of course, there's an intersection between how many tourists are here at any given time and the lived experience. Any one of us who's worked in the service industry knows that it feels different on Christmas than it does in May, and not always in a good way. We shifted this year from marketing to resort management for a reason. The tourist base is a huge part of why this community is successful. The second homeowner community, which my family was part of in Snowmass and going back to the 60s, is a huge part of this community. So it's not about dissolving that, but it is about finding balance. I don't want to be a council person who gets calls from people who run restaurants who are literally in tears because of their experience and their workflow over New Year's. I don't think that's what any of us moved here for. I don't think that's what anybody deserves. And I don't think it's what we should be aiming for more of.
I don't think there's a number that can be put on tourism. I think that we live in a tourist town. We've all always lived in a tourist town, and we have to embrace that and leverage it. This is not really the responsibility of our municipal government to determine how much tourism is appropriate for our community. But I do like what ACRA is doing, like Sam touched upon, on responsible tourism, and it's incumbent on all of us to help our visitors who provide so much for this community, and I appreciate in a tremendous way, regardless of where they come from or how they feel they're being treated and how they manifest that behavior. I think it's our responsibility to teach them how we act in Aspen and lead by example. And I try to do my best to treat my fellow community members and business owners and everyone else with the most respect. And I think if we lead by example, that will go a long way.
Thank you. We are nearing the end of this session. This question is pretty important. I think it speaks to flexibility, malleability, and your constituents. I want to first answer, what is your favorite mountain out of our incredible power of four? Followed directly by, in your previous time on council, boards, or a commission, has there been a time where you've been swayed by either public comment or discussion related pertaining to an issue? Bill, you can start.
So I love Aspen Mountain because it defied my expectations. I'm stealing a tagline from ACRA there, thanks. It really did. You know, when I grew up visiting Aspen, starting in my mid-teens, I mostly skied snowmass. I had certain perceptions of Aspen, and when I moved here and started skiing and snowboarding there more, it's just incredible how many layers there are to that onion of Aspen Mountain. So, and I continue to discover new things on a regular basis.
Have you been swayed? Has there been a...
Oh, have I been swayed? I pride myself on being proven wrong. My wonderful wife, Lisa, likes to prove me wrong occasionally, which I appreciate. She's one of the most insightful people I've ever met in my life, and I do appreciate that, even though it's not always easy. But being proven wrong is something that I pride myself on, something that I would bring to the leadership table, and I would not make the mistake of continuing to plow forward with something that is so obviously wrong, a decision that I've made. And a good example of that is the Living Lab. I mean, there is no excuse for not pivoting when City Council got that wrong.
Let's just work our way down the line. Skip, you go next.
Oh, such an annoying answer on the mountains, but it really depends on the day. You know, if I need quick laps, Ajax is right there. If I want to get into a different environment, the bowl is calling me, and if I want to go jump off cliffs, then Snowmass is the only place to go, and the snow lasts for 3 days, so I love all of it. Sorry, buttermilk. As to changing my mind, yeah, look, I mean, life is just continuing to learn lessons. I think two great examples are, you know, during the moratorium, our initial approach was to limit square footage, and we listened to the development community, and it was from that feedback that we got to the demolition allotments. That's where that came from. That was a very significant pivot, and not one that we were thinking about at the time. On the STR tax, I supported a 13.1% tax across the board initially, and we passed something much lower. The reality is, on City Council, you are not emperor or czar. You are one of five, and you are part of an organism, and we work towards consensus. So yes, I have and will continue to support things in the best interest of the community that aren't perfect, but are progress, that are informed by everybody, including Sam and Bill, who I've spent lots of time with while I've been on council.
Definitely doing a bowl lap. That's just what I do all the time. Or I'm skinning up Aspen Mountain or Kayak at night, if you ever see me with my headlamp. As far as being swayed goes, I can't think of a specific example on my time on planning and zoning, but I will tell you, I got to know the other planning and zoning members and understood what they did for livings. And that really helped me understand what areas of expertise they were bringing into the equation. And it definitely would help me come to a compromise. P&Z is a little different that way as far as coming to a consensus goes. But it's really important to know that someone's a realtor, someone works at State Market, or someone comes from a different background to understand just you know, the perspective they're coming from and how important that is in making decisions to collaborate on.
Thank you. This is our last question before closing statements. And we'll start with you, Sam. Only registered Aspen voters can elect you to office, yet your decisions at the council table will affect the workforce living out of Aspen city limits, tourists, second homeowners, and businesses. Given that there are often conflicting needs in these user groups, who will you be representing as you consider your votes as a council person?
Well, I think the easy answer is, why have a city if you're not representing the constituents of the city? They come first and foremost, and their needs are who I'm trying to represent. It doesn't mean I ignore anyone outside of the city limits, but it definitely means that, you know, they come first, and that really is the simple answer to that question for me.
Yeah, I mean, when thinking through any issue, I think of the organism that is Aspen. And we are in many ways a valley-wide community, and we are an entity unto ourselves. So the answer is you have to think about all of it, but you have to think about what is best for the organism itself while listening to each individual group or faction or part of that, but ultimately settling on what's best for the community. An example of looking outside is, I've really pushed for, and we are now at APSHA marketing bilingually throughout the Valley, recognizing that many of the people down Valley are precisely the people that our policies missed, that we have failed most, and we want to be able to include in our community because they already work and recreate here. So I think it's got to be all of it.
So I've talked about this a lot. Aspen is made up of so many stakeholders, and we have some very bizarre city limits that I don't really understand the reasoning behind, but it goes beyond second homeowners, and it goes beyond business owners, and it includes our Latino community, and it includes the person that comes to visit Aspen once in their life. And I don't think that the consideration is being paid towards so many of these stakeholders, and that's a big reason why I'm running for council, is I don't feel that my perspective, which shouldn't be that dissimilar to 5 other people that are city residents in this community, but I don't feel that my perspective is being considered at the council table, and so many of my friends and business associates and colleagues and relatives who live in Aspen or around Aspen or in the Valley also feel that way, that their perspective is not being represented in any way, shape, or form. So despite all the outreach and the marketing, whatever that means, it's not working.
All right, thank you. So we have 1 minute apiece to close, and then I'll take a quick bow on our way out. But Skippy, why don't you start and close it out for us? 1 minute.
I made a decision early on in this campaign that my first goal was going to be to move the conversation, and my second was going to be to win. My observation is that we all share the vast majority of our values, goals, and aims, but we are stuck in policy architecture from the 1980s, and in the case of our democracy and process that is rightly criticized, the 1780s. And so I have put forth 3 bold, achievable policy solutions, new frameworks to bring us into the modern day and address the problems of today and not tomorrow. Simply sitting around, pointing and blaming at someone else, airing grievances, doing the same thing, expecting a different result, can't get us there. I don't expect you to like everything I'm putting forward, and I don't expect what I put forward to be ultimately what happens. These things will take years. They will take years together. And in doing so, we will move our community forward in the tradition that we always have, doing hard things that were unconventional to sustain our community for the next generation.
Go ahead, Sam.
I'm on a quest to be a lifelong Aspenite, and city government, local government is the best place to make tangible change. The things I preach in this campaign, a lot of our intent is very similar: more childcare, more affordable housing, more affordable food and beverage, all the wonderful things that make this community whole. The things that I really just want to bring to the table are more symbiotic relationships. Less us versus them. Working with each other will get us a lot further. More net positive for the locals. A lot of these deals will be really tough negotiations, but we need to get more out of it than the other side does. And just understanding their gain is our gain, and good intent is not good enough, and working as hard as possible to learn from the mistakes of the past to move into the forward and move forward in the best possible way for our city and our community.
Thanks again to ACRA, to Rotary, to YPN, to all of you for paying attention and participating in our civic process. It's so critical, and it helps shape the Aspen that we all live in on a daily basis. Thank you. I'm about pragmatic solutions. I'm about thoughtful leadership. I'm about making a difference for the benefit of our community, for enhancing Aspen, not changing Aspen. I have no interest in reinventing the downtown core or trying to reinvent the democratic process right here in Aspen. I don't have rainbow and unicorn solutions. I have pragmatic, tangible solutions for Aspen that I think can really enhance and improve the experience for all of us living, working, doing business in, and visiting Aspen. I love Aspen deeply. I'm doing this for the benefit of our community and my children and my family, and I hope that I can have your vote to help bring some of that to the table for all of us.
All right, thank you so much, you guys. I really do want to say that starting with the CD3, our congressional district race, indoor school board, certainly the sheriff's race, leading into this one, Aspen has started to see some negative campaigning tactics that I think is unhealthy for dialogue and for constructive community conversation. So first and foremost, I want to acknowledge you guys for running a clean campaign and bringing the best of you to the table, because it allows these folks to place their vote on the person that they really believe will represent them the best. So congratulations on that. Thank you for being a part of this process, and we appreciate you being here tonight.
We are just going to take enough time to switch out city council candidates for mayoral. So if you want a beverage, if you want to run to the bathroom, but we are going to start, we're on broadcast, so we're going to start as soon as we get this switched out. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Dave. Yeah,
Check, check. Thank you so much for being a part of the Thriving in Aspen Forum, both those who are here in the room with us and those watching on GrassRoots TV. I'm Allison Bektesh. I'm the Public Affairs Manager with the Aspen Chamber Resort Association. On behalf of ACRA, I'd like to thank our sponsors for this evening, the Young Professionals Network of Aspen Board of Realtors, Avanti Productions, and the Rotary Club of Aspen, and all the volunteers who are part of those organizations that came. I am going to give 60 seconds to Alexandra George to talk a little bit more about the Young Professionals Network.
Thank you, Sky. Thank you, Molly. Hi, all. Thank you for being here. Allison, thanks for having us. This lady has been absolutely amazing. Thank you, Tori, Tracy, David, Crystal. YPN Aspen is a group of young professionals. We've kind of evolved since our start in 2018 from being young professionals to what we like to consider being young at heart and curious. So all of you fall into that category. Since forming YPN Aspen, have hosted now, this would be our 10th event. And they range from marketing, panels, networking events, pickleball tournaments. We kind of run the gamut. So there's a lot of really fun, interesting, awesome ways to get involved and meet people. It's been a really amazing experience, so thank you. And if you aren't familiar, give me one more second. If you aren't familiar, please, I encourage you to get involved. Allison, I'll give this back to you.
Great example for our upcoming moderated debate. We do have two fabulous moderators with us tonight, Crystal Logan and David Cook, and I'll reintroduce them for those of you who weren't here at the top of the last. Crystal Logan is a VP of Community Programs and Engagement at the Aspen Institute. She is the chair of the board of ACRA, and as an elected member to that board, she's representing our nonprofit business community. David Cook is the publisher of Aspen Daily News. He might tell you a little bit more of all the ways he's connected here tonight. So we are getting into our mayoral debate. We still have 1 hour for that, but 2 candidates, so you'll be able to hear a little bit more in depth in their answers. We're going to try and get through as much as we can. So please still adhere to our time, and the moderators will be saying what that time is. We have our volunteer timers right here. It is a moderated forum, not a debate. So the questions that they are posing to these candidates were submitted by members of the sponsoring organizations. The point is to get you to know them as well as possible. If things come up where you'd like to respond directly, please note it down, and we have reserved time at the end. The ideal is to get through all the questions that these people submitted, and then you guys can get to that back and forth if need be. So please be respectful of each other. And audience, please be respectful of those who are putting their names out there to represent us in the community. We're so grateful for that. I'll give it to the moderators.
All right, thank you, Allison. Thanks to you all for being here. I will jump right in with, we'll have a 1-minute opening statement from each of you, and we'll go to you first, Tori. I'd also like to know where we can find you usually on Saturday mornings.
All right, thank you very much. Is this on yet?
Doesn't look on.
Thank you very much. Saturday mornings, you're going to find me either at home or on Aspen Mountain. That's an easy one. First of all, thank you very much to ACRA, to the Board of Realtors, and the YPN, and Rotary. Thank you for putting this event on. Campaigns are absolutely awful and amazing. It is a time for us to come together as a community, talk about our values, talk about our goals, and our future. So it's an honor to be here. First, I do need to acknowledge today's events. I share with those that are still emotional about what we went through today and what our kids went through, but our whole community went through. And I want to say thank you to our Valley responders. And the city will be following up with this, doing an after-event evaluation and bringing our community together to move forward safely for everybody. I probably just used up all my time, so I'll say this really quickly. This election is about choosing a sustainable quality of life, a livable Aspen, and building community over selling out our mountain ski town values. The stronger our community, the more successful our resort economy. I've worked in many business sectors in Aspen. I've been here for about 30 years, and I've had a million different jobs like a lot of us do. From lodges, teaching on the Hill, restaurants, recreation, events. I'm very close to business in Aspen. I live in the downtown core, and I talk to business owners on a daily basis. It is my front yard. I support business opportunity and sustainability for all of our community. I'll share my rest of my comments later.
Thank you, Tracy.
There, we on? Okay, hello everybody. Of course, I want to thank everyone here, the Aspen Board of Realtors, the Aspen Chamber Resort Association, Aspen YPM, the Rotary Club for having us, and you guys for moderating as well. And I echo everybody in this room and Tori and the council contenders. I mean, it was nothing makes your heart drop just when you hear something like this is going on in your community, and we're very lucky and we're very thankful because you always think that it's going to happen to someone else. And even though we had a scare, I'm very happy that the outcome was what it was, and I'm very thankful to the people that responded to it. So with that being said, one of the most important parts of running this town is balancing a successful economy with our unique character and community. And I think that's a really tough balance to make, but I think that we're really trying. Neither of us can survive without the other. And as a businesswoman, an Aspen local, and someone who's lived here for 30 years, I live that balance every day. I moved here because I love this town. I'm a true Coloradoan. I was born and raised in Rifle because Meeker didn't have a hospital. And so, and I grew up in Fruita and Denver and everywhere else. So that's why it's so important to me to bring the community and the business to balance.
Thank you. We have 2 minutes each for this question, and it's kind of a two-parter. The overarching question is, why are you running for mayor? But more specifically, what is your understanding of the difference between a mayoral seat and a council seat? And why did you choose mayor? Tracy, I'm going to start with you.
Okay, well, that's a very valid question. I chose to run for mayor because I feel that I'm a great leader. And I think that the mayor leads the council. You need to have someone at the helm of the ship. And based on my previous experience, that I'm a really good candidate for that. I've started my own business. I know my way around an office. I know how to hire employees. I know how to coordinate those things. And that's why I really feel that I'm a really excellent candidate for the job. I'm also most of the time, a really good diplomat. And I think that's a skill that's really necessary in this position. And I think that's one of my better talents.
Thank you. Hello, Tori.
Well, being the current mayor, I thought that it'd probably be my best idea to run for my third and final term. So the decision between council and mayor was easy for me. I've served previously 2 terms on city council from 2003 to 2007, 2009 to 2013. I have more to give. The last 4 years were really rewarding, an incredible learning experience, but we had our trials and challenges. So I think where we are now, I can easily say that we are better off than we were 4 years ago, and I want to continue this work and move it forward. The other part of your question was about the difference between council and the mayor. As I've explained recently, the mayor is somewhat of a coach, something I'm very familiar with. I'm a tennis coach in my other career, my other profession. And bringing people together is something that the mayor needs to do a little bit more than council. Council is really there to kind of deal with the day-to-day, the things that are in front of you, making decisions and leading our community, where the mayor is the team maker. We have the community, we have city staff, and we have our council members. And so from the mayor's seat, it's really your job to bring those 3 factions together, have open communication, and then determine the best direction for our community. Again, I'm asking for 2 more years. We've started so much good work. As a matter of fact, a lot that you might hear from even my opponent are things that are in progress. We've done so much good work. 2 more years for me to finish off what I can give to my community right now is what I'm asking for from you. So vote Tory for mayor, please.
Thank you. Tracy, you're up first on this one. You have 2 minutes to answer. How will you make yourself available to the public? What is your understanding of the time commitment of this role? How will you fit it into your daily life? How much time do you see yourself spending on outreach or open office hours?
Well, I'm going into this fully prepared. You know, I do run a business, and I'm very lucky to have a support staff that is totally behind me running for this position. Luckily, my office is about 500 yards from City Hall, so that will make it even easier. But I do plan on making this my full-time position. I am already, consider what I was going to have to do to operate both of those. I've got several people that are stepping up to the plate, and I know that I will have to hire another person to assist me with some of these duties so that it will free me up for giving my full time to the Aspen community. But it's something that I feel is really important. So that's my main goal. And, I answer pretty much 24/7 in my current position, so I don't see why that would change at all if I become mayor.
Well, I understand the time commitment, having been there for 4 years. It's not just a full-time job, it's beyond a full-time job. I field calls at 3 o'clock in the morning. I am woken up at 6:30 in the morning. And my entire day, whether it's, as everybody likes to say, going to City Market or walking down the street, can take me as much time as it takes to actually get to lunch and have lunch. So it is a big commitment, and I am all in. And like I said, I've got the energy and the motivation for 2 more years. I can't iterate enough. It takes a long time to turn a large ship. The City of Aspen is a very large ship. We have turned that ship. We are headed in the right direction. The future looks great, but we have more work to do. I recognize that we have room for improvement. That's why I'm still here. I always got into city government here in Aspen because I saw that opportunity for improvement, and I continue to work hard every day. That's 7 days a week for my community. So again, I'm asking for your vote for 2 more years to go back to work for you.
Thank you both. I think it's widely recognized that a lot of the most important work done from the mayoral seat is the committees in which you serve. What committees would you strive to sit on in Tory your final term or Tracy your first term?
Would you like me to start?
Please,
Okay.
your turn to start.
Well, unfortunately, if reelected, I'm interested in serving on RAFTA. I'm sorry, APCHA. I'm already on RAFTA. I'm already on CAST. I serve on a number of committees. But the reason I say this is with a little bit of a smile and a laugh in my voice is because it's a big commitment as well. I've talked to our city staff about it and our manager as well. But I feel so dedicated to our cause for local and affordable housing that I would like to actually step up my involvement and become a member of that committee as well. Thank you.
Well, I have to echo, RAFTA is an interesting choice. I hadn't thought about that when you first mentioned it, but it's really interesting because when you see, when we get these notices at night that all the bus service has been canceled, so that's interesting. I hadn't even thought about it till right now, so I'll put that on the tickler. I'm definitely interested, obviously, in planning and zoning. I think that's a very important part of this right now. A thoughtful growth and seeing projects get finished and seeing where they're going to go. That's probably my main commitment I would make. I also agree with the APCHA. I would like to serve on the APCHA board because I think that all goes hand in hand. And having been someone who's lived here for a long time and never had the privilege of living in APCHA housing, I'd like to know how it works, and I'd also like to be able to help people get into it. And not only the workers that come in for the season, but for people that want to be here for a lifetime and make this their home and make this their community. And so anything I can do to facilitate that, I'm all for that.
Thank you.
I just wanted to be clear that planning and zoning is actually a separate commission. It's not one of the boards or commissions that the mayor would serve on.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next question is 1 minute you have to answer. What are the greatest challenges facing our business community, and what can city government do to support business needs? Tori?
No, number one is workforce housing. You can ask anybody. I'm looking at some of the business faces in the audience that have literally said to me, I cannot find employees. Not only that, I can't find quality employees. You know, one of the issues for us as a community of such high expectations is that when our service levels drop, it is noticed. So it's not just a simple question of getting a body to be there, but getting somebody who's invested and wants to be a part of your business and wants to perform for you as well. Housing is obviously number one. I'd say second to that would be that training. You know, how are we inculcating new members of our community and new members of our workforce in order to be part of our community and strive for the same values that we have? So housing, appropriate training, healthcare has been something that I've been working on for a valley-wide healthcare network that's also right now just making those first moves into the small business sector and giving them the opportunities to take advantage of that as well.
Would you repeat that question for me, please?
Let's see, what are the greatest challenges facing our business community, and what can city government do to support business needs?
Okay, well, I have to agree with my incumbent that I think housing is obviously always going to be one of those things where we're going to have people to work. I think transportation is another factor. Currently you have parking issues, which I think, reducing the number of parking hours that you're allowed, to 2 hours, it gives you ample time to run errands and things like that. So I think that would be helpful to the business community. I think it's a really difficult thing to find talented staff. I agree with Tori on that. We do have procedures in place where we train our employees, and most of them, I'm sorry to say, you have to live outside the city limits, but working on transportation on that is one thing that we're working on as well. I also think that the businesses face, one of their struggles is getting rid of these holes in the ground. I know those affect the businesses. I mean, I was listening to someone speak the other day. I can get into that later as well.
Sounds good. Tracy, this question is specifically for you. After the initial campaign finance reports came in, it was abundantly clear that a majority of your donors were coming from the real estate community. Do you view that as your primary constituency, and how will you represent groups outside of your primary focus?
Well, that's a good question. It's a very good observation, but I think it also is indicative of the people that I know. They know that I'm going to do a good job, and yes, I am a realtor, but that's not my main focus. These are people that I've worked with, and they believe in me, and they are supporting me no matter where they live, and they know that my general well-being is for the City of Aspen, and that I want great things for this city, as do they. And I think you have to recognize that these people don't just live in the city. And everything that we do is an ecosystem that we are supporting a whole community and a whole valley. And I think that speaks realms for it.
Thank you. And I have a quick follow-up question on that as well. You have yard signs around Aspen that says, I cannot vote for Tracy, but you should. Should your support from outside the community be concerning to Aspen voters?
I don't believe so. And this question has come up before, and it was actually really something that was really important. There is a family that lives by where I live who spends 6 months of the year here. Their family, our old family, they've been here for years, and they spend 6 months out of the year, like I said, here. And actually, their niece and their nephews are Coulter and Bridger Smith. So they want to support me, and they're here. They employ people, but a lot of people that have those signs are people that live outside where they can't vote. So we're talking about the ones at Phillips Curve. We're talking about the ones at North 40, and these are people that really, they're stakeholders in our community, but they can't have a say, and they need someone for that voice. And I think the fact that they're supporting me is really exceptional.
Thank you.
All right, Tori, this is for you, 2 minutes. When issues come to the council table that divide the community, such as the short-term rental tax and the downtown living lab, how do you choose which local opinion to side with?
First of all, I want to say this is really a unique forum. It's the first one I've ever been to with an operating disco ball. So I just want to point that out for everybody. This is a very unique get-together. I want to tie the two things together. You just asked Tracy a question, and then you go to the STR tax. And this is where we come into a problem. Tracy entered this race at the 11th hour, if you could say that. She, for all intents and purposes, has gotten involved because of her job and her position. One of the things that this council did, well, actually, the community supported it over 60% for the STR tax that you're talking about. So this is where these conversations and these decisions may get difficult. Tracy talks about her folks that support her that don't live here, but maybe they own property here. And if the intention in Tracy's candidacy is to continue to profiteer and support those non-residents, but not support an STR tax that is really just to take care of some of the community impacts, I think that's really the essence of what we're talking about. It's not that people support you that don't live here. It's about what that support means and what direction they see for the community and how you would bring that to the table as mayor. The second part of your question was directly about the STR tax.
When there are issues that divide the community like STR and the Living Lab, how do you choose which local opinion to side with?
You take input from every angle. We are a community that is made up of many different kinds of residents. And my intention is to make the best decisions for the majority of our community, but also in the best interest of Aspen moving forward. Again, the short-term rental tax, and Skippy in some of his answers was giving you a little more information about what the survey said that we got back from our community. Our community actually supported, the highest support was for a higher short-term rental tax. This council really made it moderate and just a mid-level tax because we felt that was in the best direction of our entire community.
I have a follow-up question for you, Tori. You're using a People Not Profits campaign slogan. Where does the business community fall into that?
Well, actually, that was just a statement at, I think, Squirm Night. That's a phraseology that I think can resonate with a lot of people that make them understand what we're talking about. When you're putting profit over people, that means you're not taking care of the same people that are working for you and that you work for your community members. I think that we all need to be careful about that. There's some great people that work in jobs that make them make decisions that may not be in the best interest of themselves or their community. This is when you need to refer to documents like the Aspen Area Community Plan. You need to confer with the people that have been here, that have set the standard for us. The folks that have made great decisions about the housing in our community or the transit system that we have in our community. You need to take all that history and bring that forward into the decisions that you're making.
I'm gonna ask a couple of rapid fire questions here. Tori, if you have some friends in town that really want to check out the Aspen opera scene, where are you gonna take them, assuming that Skippy's house is occupied?
It could be Mezzaluna, it could be New York Pizza, it could be Zane's for that matter, Public House. I'll give a shout out to a lot of different places. There are still, some places in town that represent and serve the locals, and they deserve our
You're both answering.
Unfortunately, there's several, I'm sorry to say. The Red Onion the original Red Onion was really, well, let's not forget Cooper Street Pier, Little Annie's,
The list goes on and on.
How many minutes do I have for this? There's so many of them that have gone, and it's sad, and I miss those. And, I've been very public. I miss the bar menu more than anything. That's one of the things that went with COVID that I really wish would come back.
I'll just throw in the Motherlode.
Oh.
I miss the Motherlode restaurant.
All right, last rapid fire question. What is your favorite run on Aspen Mountain?
Pussyfoot.
Unfortunately, I haven't skied in 18 years. I have a bad ankle and a bad knee. But, do what you do best, and I operate best. And, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to send him to Ajax Tavern.
Right on. Thank you both.
Good answer. All right, 2 minutes for this. Tracy, this question is for you. You suggest we should modify the Castle Creek Bridge before it reaches the end of its lifespan. What do you mean by modify? And if the existing highway bridge is to be rehabilitated, rebuilt, or expanded, how do we get through the potentially years-long traffic crunch while construction is underway?
Okay, it's well known that I've talked about traffic quite a bit. I've talked to several people, and I'm with Bill. I'm not a bridge builder, but one of the interesting concepts that I found really fascinating how to work was, and I've actually driven there, but would be, building, keeping the bridge as it is, doing 2 lanes out, 2 lanes in on some type of, 2 green lanes in. And then doing a separate pedestrian bridge. I mean, obviously you're going to have to modify the power plant road, but and while that is going on, the traffic in the West End is just insane. I went out to the high school to visit. My nieces were playing out there, and it took me 45 minutes to get out of town. I can't even imagine what, having to travel in that every single day. And that's just to get to the high school. So, that's definitely with locals. So I also am really concerned about the traffic and the safety of people in the West End as well as downtown. One of the corners that I identified this morning, there was an accident over off of Gibson Street, so I think that's one plan. Power Plant Road is definitely going to have to be the main access point, and there's going to have to be modifications made to that. But once again, I'm not an engineer.
Thank you. Tori, I have a separate question for you. Similar. City staff have stated that the preferred alternative will not measurably improve traffic wait times going in and out of Aspen. Should the council be working to make that trip quicker?
Oh, let's see. I don't know about quickness, but alleviating some of the congestion, without a doubt. It's not necessarily just about travel times. It's kind of the impacts of travel times. Less time for people sitting in their car caught in congestion, less pollution from congestion, less frustration from it, absolutely. Just to go a little bit deeper, my first job as current mayor is to run a process for our community that is transparent and open and gets us to our best solution, regardless of what my preference may be. But I will say that I am probably the person in this room that has advocated for 3-laning the existing bridge longer than anybody else. Anybody else advocate for? So I've been talking about rebuilding our Castle Creek Bridge for about 20 plus years. And it was an opportunity that we had long ago. We could have afforded to do it ourselves. We could have made other improvements along the corridor. An opportunity that came and went. Of course, I wasn't sitting here in the mayor's seat. But the community didn't choose to go that direction. I think that there are a lot of solutions that we don't know about yet. I see, what I consider somewhat of a traffic expert in the room. Edward is over in the back of the room, and what I advocate more than anything is to enlist the help of some people that are experts that do know more about this, because there's still a lot of unanswered questions about replacing the Castle Creek Bridge.
Thank you. This is a question for both of you. We'll have 1 minute each to answer it. I'm glad we get to ask it because it was on the list for the council candidates and we didn't get a chance to ask it. So just in general, what is your ideal parking plan for downtown Aspen? And more specifically, how do you balance the parking needs of businesses with the character of our downtown core? Tracy, why don't you start?
Well, first of all, like I kind of alluded to before, I really think that we should limit the parking downtown to maybe 2 hours. I think the price is really exorbitant. I think that should be modified during off-season, but that way allow someone to go have lunch, and go do a little shopping. I mean, we do have the parking garage, which most of the time is not full. I mean, I've seen it on really heavy days, but I think those would be, major steps in the right direction. Secondly, I think we've beat the Living Lab to death, but I think that we need to take those parking spots back. We need to reduce the amount of time that you can park there. And, I'm not really adverse. I think that locals should have some sort of break. I thought, I really appreciate the 15-minute free parking and the $1 for 30 minutes. I think that that helps everybody. But I do think that we need to, recognize that we do need to utilize those parking spots that we've lost during this time and reduce the length of time that you can park there.
Lori, same question for you.
Parking is not the only question that you're asking. I mean, number one, I support more remote parking, more bus access, and more transit solutions. Number one. I support more parking downtown. There's a couple of opportunities, whether they be loading zones or the like, but more than that, I think specific parking spots for both handicap, 15-minute, and reduced time will maybe make more turnover in the downtown core. However, this is an issue that we need more data and more facts behind. I've been in several meetings where there were completely opposite accounts of what the parking impact was from whether it's the Living Lab or just life in general. We had some business folks advocating downtown for longer periods of parking, not shorter. We had some people saying that, they couldn't find a parking spot except for a half a block from where they were walking. We need more detail and more data, and then we can make some good decisions going forward for parking.
Thank you. This next question is about housing. You both list affordable housing as a top priority in your campaign. Where do you stand on building new housing to add to the Aspen-Pitkin County Housing Authority stock? Sorry, Tori.
Yep, no problem. We have one large opportunity in front of us, maybe one real opportunity in front of us, and that's the lumberyard. I support building at the lumberyard. It's been in our plans for affordable housing for a long time. I'm very excited to report that, what we're looking at right now is a phased approach with rental housing for our workforce and our community. I will also say that, during our hearings, I advocated for a slight reduction of the height, maybe a few less units out there as well to make it as livable as possible. We've come up with a really great, efficient schematic design that I think is going to lead us into the future with this project. I support building here. I also support deploying our other tools. When we talk about non-build opportunities, we've got to follow up on those. But those are scarce and rare in Aspen. We need a regional partnership to start working with our county and other players in our valley so that we can attack this from a regional perspective and not just be Aspen-centric about our solutions.
Thanks. Tracy, same question, 1 minute.
Well, I really do not support the lumberyard at this point in time because of the traffic issues, obviously, and I do think that there are more opportunities in town and closer to town that need renovation and they need to be upgraded. I think it's a travesty that we lost Centennial. I think that, 20 years down the road, that's really sad, and the fact that the deed restrictions we lost, I think, is tragic as well. So I think our best opportunity is to go in and look at the projects that are already here, look at the land that's already here within the city limits where we can build and take those opportunities. I think that going outside the roundabout just only increases an already abhorrent traffic situation, and I think we need to be a little more closer to home. And that's where my thoughts lie on the housing. And I also think that it should be quality built housing so we don't have what happened at Centennial as well. I know that was a county issue that you guys are now dealing with.
Just a quick follow-up. Can you give us specifics about what's available in town?
There were several. Actually, when I was at the work session last night, you were talking about the Panabode that's right by the Hickory House and some of the old Mountain Rescue building, which I think is an interesting concept. I also know that there are, and as a realtor, we also know that there are some little pockets of undeveloped land that are, that I know that owners would be willing to, once they're rezoned, I think that those could definitely be made into smaller employee housing facilities.
I'm going to ask you both this question. straight up, do you support allowing retirees to exist in ABSHA housing? Tori, I'm going to have you start.
Yes, I do. Not only that, but I've also been putting forth to our representatives to APSHA of some other opportunities for getting volunteerism from our community. So right now you have a 1,500 hour a year annual requirement for housing. My suggestion is that we make some of that allotment available to volunteer hours and even do that on a double payback. So you do 50 hours of volunteerism in our community, you get 100 hours towards your occupancy requirement. I'm going to use the rest of my time real quickly. Tracy just said that she didn't agree with building the lumberyard, and then her first example for building more housing was a lot that's for 2 units. That's not a solution or a trade-off that'll benefit our community. And then if you have properties that are privately listed that you think would be appropriate for housing and you have sellers that want to, will you please get them in touch with me as soon as possible? Thanks.
Okay, now what was the original question before?
Retirees in ABSHA housing.
Absolutely, I think retirees should belong in ABSHA housing. If you've spent your life built here, you've been here, you said for 30 years. Last time I heard it was 20, but I know I've been here 33 years. I think that if you've spent your time and you've worked here, that you're absolutely entitled to your ABSHA housing. It doesn't that you shouldn't have to continue to work 1,500 hours, like as you said. We agree on that. However, I do see where the need is where some of these people have larger homes, and I've actually talked to some people who have, like their kids have moved away, and there's the incentive plan that I really support. A lot of people don't want to maintain a 3 or 4 bedroom home. Their kids aren't here. So why shouldn't they have the opportunity to live in the community that they've spent years staying in? And so I do support that. And, the volunteer hours is really, I see that as an open-ended discussion. However, I think that they've already done their time and that they should be allowed to live here.
Thank you. This one's for you, Tracy, 2 minutes. You propose that Aspen provide low or no interest loans to ABSHA HOAs. Where would that money come from? And doesn't that disincentivize owners for putting away money for capital repairs?
I think that as my opponent has pointed out, you've increased the short-term rental sales tax. Part of that money is allocated to employee housing. Why couldn't that go towards those capital improvements? And I think that if the city's building property that needs capital improvements like that after a certain amount of time, that it wasn't quality construction, then I think the city should definitely dip into those coffers and make that right. I think that these homes have to be maintained so that they can be continued, so that they can be lived in further down the line. So I think that if you're offering, employee housing and you're supporting it, you're putting a cap on what they can sell it for. So there's really no incentive to put any capital improvements in there. Then I think the city needs to come up with a plan to help support those.
Thank you, Tori. This one's for you specifically. You have 2 minutes to answer this question. You stated publicly that you're proud of the city's strategic housing plan. In what ways was the community involved with designing that plan? And what is a concrete strategy you would be able to implement in your next and final term?
The community was brought into our work sessions as well as our outreach sessions as we were building the plan. The beauty of the plan is really that it gets us all literally on the same page. We've been talking around buy downs opportunities. We've been talking about construction opportunities, maintenance and upkeep. And nobody's really had the same plan together to say, hey, what does it take in each department and what are we going to need for our resources and where are they best going to go? What can we implement from there? I think the number one thing that you're going to see coming out of the strategic plan is the assurances going into the future of some deed restrictions that are set to sunset. We have that work coming back to us very soon. So that's number one. We've also identified our opportunities for new build. And I know, look, nobody loves turning dirt, but we need some housing, and that's going to land at the lumberyard. But we have some other opportunities, small pockets, as Tracy would call them, and opportunities for the city to build on our own property. So I think a lot of the different actions that are put forth in the housing plan are going to come to fruition. Again, this is another one of those examples where we started this work 2 years ago. We just have it now going forward. This is a really great opportunity. I was very proud of this because this was something that I noticed was very noticeably missing. We were all talking about different things, but we weren't on the same page. And this plan gets us there.
Thank you. The next question is for both of you. Tracy, let's start with you. You have 1 minute. Do you have ideas outside of a subsidized housing plan or program that would allow local workers to obtain stable housing in the community?
I think it's an interesting concept to have, private enterprise definitely, buy housing for their employees. They addressed this with the council members earlier. I think there's a lot of opportunities out there for people to, use their ADUs. Back in the day when they used everybody built ADUs, so there are people that aren't using them. I think that those are a good option to start with.
The ADUs came and went. We have no legal ability to have residency. We have not had volunteerism come forward in that residency. So I don't know how much fruit there's to bear there. I think that our biggest step will be partnerships, both private and public, with different organizations and entities. I'm looking forward to that. But a lot of the improvements that we're making at APSHA, trying to fill bedrooms that are vacant at this time and the like, there's other avenues that we can still be moving forward with. Partnerships, both public and private, are probably our next greatest tool.
Thank you.
Okay, where was I? Thank you. No, I'm right here. Yeah, there we go. Tracy, you had mentioned that downtown projects need to be completed faster. Would you put sanctions or fines on the development companies that are stalled out?
I think putting sanctions or fines on development companies that aren't performing really, I can't imagine anybody who has a good business sense is going to sit there and look at a hole in the ground without having it fixed or getting it completed. So I think there needs to be better communication to get that done. I mean, if you're putting sanctions and fines on a project that's not completed, how do you anticipate collecting on that? That's the problem I see. I think that it would behoove everybody just to have a very candid conversation with the developer or whoever's struggling with those projects and see what you can do to move them forward and get them completed so that we're not sitting here having the business community, like I started to say earlier, this poor woman is like sitting across from two places. She's got a small local business and she can't get people to come into her business, and thus she can't make any sales because nobody wants to walk down the street because it's full of construction. So, excuse me, so I think our best answer there is to work with the development community, find out what the process is, why it's taking so long, and get the projects moved and get them moving and get them finished and get them occupied so it benefits all the business community and all of the people who are working here. It creates jobs, and hopefully those are the people that will be contributing to the housing. So I think it's a win-win. I mean, we're in an ecosystem that everybody needs to help each other out, whether you disagree whether they're from second homeowners, whether you disagree whether they're billionaires on Red Mountain, or if they're one of us locals who supports local business. You need to help everybody out, and I think you need to go to those people and talk to them knowledgeably and get these projects finished.
Thank you. This one's for you, Tori, a separate question.
Okay, but I'm going to come back to that.
Okay, at the end. The use of public right-of-way helped local restaurants and visitor experiences during the COVID-19 pandemic. Why did the council end that availability? You have 2 minutes.
Well, we didn't end it all. We ended some of the public right-of-way that was in our streets and our parking. That was for a fair, balanced, and equitable downtown business environment. There were only certain restaurants and certain businesses that could take advantage of that, and that was impacting other businesses. So I think that what we tried to do is come down with a community value that was for equity in business. And I think we achieved that. We should all keep in mind, last year was a record-setting year in Aspen for our sales tax revenue, which means our sales. 3 segments were down: cannabis, liquor, health and beauty. Those are good signs, right? So during coming out of a pandemic, we had a growing economy, but not in 2 areas of substance, perhaps, problems. I think that's fantastic. I wanted to get back to what Tracy was just saying, because Tracy just kind of endorsed me. Because what she just said was that somebody needs to go to the business developers downtown and have an open conversation and find out what we can do to help them. Tori is your candidate, because that's what I did. Now, on the good news about that, what you're going to hear is that 8 out of 10 of the projects that are led by one developer downtown are permitted and moving forward. Tracy, I thought you might know a little bit more about this topic, being in the real estate business like you are. But no, the answer to what Tracy kind of was asking is, what you would think is common sense business doesn't say, I need to keep this going and I need to build and I need to fill this hole. And I know that because I did speak to a developer downtown who shared with me that he was quite content not completing his project. He was already collecting rent, number one, but he was also working the deal against somebody else. So, this is an area that we are working hard on. I personally have invested a lot of time and energy in getting our downtown reinvigorated and restarted. And again, this is work that is going on now.
Thank you.
Let's give Tracy a quick chance to respond to that.
Well, first of all, I'm going to take a step back because I'm done taking a Tory beating. I will tell you that the reason I got into this race, and yes, it was last minute, is because I was tired of seeing things not getting completed. You've sat here and you've bragged about how long you've been on the council, how long you've been mayor, and what you're looking to accomplish. I think one of the reasons, to answer your question, why I got in this race is because I like to see things get finished. So far, I haven't seen you get anything finished except sit here and badmouth me, which I thought this was not a debate. So I'm trying to be very civil. I'm trying to be very, you're the mayor, I'm trying to be very respectful, but I'm not going to sit here and take a tongue lashing off you when I got in this race, because I don't feel like you got anything done, and somebody needs to be in this position and get it done.
Okay, thank you. You're right, it's not a debate, and this is a moderated discussion, so let's do our best to keep it civil and talk about our personal ideals, the greater me.
Absolutely, and I think we should stick to what we do know what we're talking about, and that's all I was saying, Tracy. And I've complimented your person.
Let's move on.
I've complimented your person plenty of times.
Okay, we're gonna move on to hospitality workforce. Do you have a sense of the needs of the Aspen's hospitality workforce, and how have you sought out input from this group? And I'm assuming this submitted question is referring to this group as in members of the Chamber and Rotary of the hospitality workforce, okay. So it was submitted by the actual hospitality. So have you sought out any input from the hospitality industry on dealing with their workforce? This is a question for both of you, and you have 2 minutes each. I'd like to start with Tracy.
Okay, I can speak from what I know. I mean, there is definitely a tough time getting people to work. Front desk people, we've had issues trying to find qualified people, down to housekeepers. I mean, look at the taxi drivers. There weren't even taxi drivers to bring people from the airport. Private limo services. All of these businesses are factors in our hospitality business, and I think that they're all struggling to keep decent, not decent, but you know what I mean, quality staff that's here, that's able to work, and we go back to the employee housing situation.
So have you sought any input from the hospitality industry as to how to deal with their workforce housing?
Basically, yes, because I deal with those people every single day, but just the people that that I have a candid knowledge with. I should probably reach out. Yes, Tori, I'm behind on that one too. But I know the people that I work with, which includes housekeepers, chefs, servers in restaurants. They're looking for quality wages, which they are getting now. Thank you to our tourists who do tip well. I mean, so they are able to make a good living. But their biggest complication is housing, and I know there's several different, like Aspen Square for one, like they have employee housing, that they pay for. Once again, then we go back to, if you lose your job, do you lose your housing? So you're kind of chasing your tail there. But that seems to be the biggest, problem, is finding good help that's able to stay.
Great, thank you. Tori?
A little more clarity? Or?
Yeah, I want to clear too, to be perfectly honest. The question reads, do you have a sense of the needs of Aspen's hospitality workforce? And how have you sought out input from this group, meaning the hospitality group?
I have a very close connection. For me, I live downtown, so my front yard is just a block away or so from here. I have the opportunity to speak with restaurant owners from all levels, and I make a point of that. So, I put like Zane's and New York Pizza maybe in one category, and Cash and Casa d'Angelo in another. And I make a point to talk to all of those owners, not just the owners, but the employees themselves. Housing, obviously, number one. But other transit, for those that aren't living in the immediate proximity, for them to get to and from work is transit. And some of that even includes how late the buses run during certain times of the season. So I'm very aware of some of the challenges that the workforce and the owners that need that workforce are facing. And I work on those issues on a day-to-day basis every single day.
Thank you. Let's see, this next one is about visitor volume. It's for both of you. You have 1 minute each. What is an appropriate visitor volume for Aspen, and how do you assess this? Tracy?
I think that's a loaded question. I don't see how you can really say what is. We all sat through the summer after COVID, and I don't think that was pleasant for anybody, not even the people that were here. I think everybody was really... they were really glad to be out of the cities. They were really glad to be out of lockdown. And I see that starting to balance in the trends of my business. Things are definitely slowing down. I know that you were talking sales tax dollars are up. I know that my business is probably down about 15%, which I think is manageable. I'm not complaining about that at all. I think that we were overtaxed. I think that our facilities were overtaxed. So as far as not tax-wise, but as far as the strain on the employees and the strain on the people that were working here, and I think everybody was a little frustrated. So I don't like to see Aspen capped out, and I don't know if you can really quantify what that ideal number is, but I think that when everybody's able to live a little and breathe a little easier, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I think as well, it's kind of hard to put a number on it for sure. I think we've all felt it. As Tracy was saying, I think we've all felt it. We felt it really peak out in the summer after COVID, or if COVID's over. As I always say, to me, it's not so much about the sheer numbers as it is about the people themselves. When there's a good, positive vibe here, when our visitors are happy, when our locals are happy, that's when our numbers can be greater than they are at other times. That fluctuates. For any of you that work in the service industry, you've seen some years be better than others. I think what we need to do more than anything is get back to a community that, again, I say educates and shares our community. I am not anti-tourist at all. As a matter of fact, I want to invite people here because what we have to share as Aspen is invaluable to each individual person as well as our collective community and our country as well. So I look forward to visitorship, but yeah, when it's being pushed a little too far.
Thank you. Tracy, this question is just for you, 2 minutes to answer it. You've publicly endorsed 2 candidates that have never had held elected positions in the city council, and I'm going to make a long shot assumption here that you're hoping that you win. Do you consider...
I'm actually in it for the fun.
Do you consider experience an important component of serving on council, and what would you do as mayor to get the council up to speed if Tori, Rachel, and Skippy were all no longer present?
Well, I think it speaks upon itself that there's a great, there's a great number in this community that have decided that the current city administration is not doing a good job and that there needs to be people to replace them. I think the experience that people are talking about, I think some people may be getting a little, comfortable in their positions, whether you want to be a career politician, I don't know, but I think that it speaks volumes that we're in the running and that we're being supported and that people do really want change. I think there's different experiences that can be gleaned from this. I'm a business person. I know how to run a business. I know how to get things done. There's negotiating factors. Everybody brings a little something different to the table. And I think that, sometimes you need fresh thinkers. You need people that have new ideas and people that aren't stuck in a governmental rut on how to do things so that you get a fresh perspective on it.
And just a quick follow-up, I'd love to know what steps you would take to get people up to speed on what has come before you.
Well, I think the first thing, I've been as, Sam's been going too, I'm educating myself the best I can. I'm reviewing the budget. I'm going to the meetings. I thought it was a very good work session that you guys had last night. It was really fascinating to be brought up to speed on all of these things. So I'm definitely diving in, rolling up my sleeves and trying to get get brought up to speed so I know what we're dealing with and how I can be an advantage and take care of this.
Thank you, Tracy.
Tori, this one's for you, 2 minutes. You've been involved in Aspen government in various positions for decades. What continues to drive you? Do you think you still have the same passion for the role as you used to?
I most definitely do. Like I was saying, I have the motivation and the energy for 2 more years in this role. What drives me is my community. Sure, you can talk about housing, and that's a big part. You can talk about transit, that's a big part. What happened at our schools today, this is what's coming. We need to be aware. We need to build our community. We need to get stronger as Aspenites. Yes, I've been here 30 years. And in that 30 years, I've seen the degrading of kind of that community support. I moved to Aspen not because of the great skiing, and not even because of the great summer recreation that I take advantage of. I moved here because of the people and the community. It was the first time I'd ever had people say, well, who do you want to be? What do you want to do? And they were extremely supportive. All the people that I know that have grown up here, and I consider them to be locals, their folks and their parents, those are the ones that I'm trying to learn from and make a community for the rest of us. We have got to be more supportive and less divisive in our community. We've got to take care of our fundamental and basic needs before we start talking about luxury anything. We are a mountain ski town with amazing people. That's what keeps driving me, is that I think Aspen's the most amazing place in the world, and I want to do whatever I can to help it forward.
Thank you very much. This last question is for the both of you. You'll have 1 minute each to answer it, and I'm curious if whichever of you doesn't win, would you consider sitting on any other civic boards or committees, and how will you continue to serve your community? Tori, you start.
If I were to not win this election, I'm not going anywhere. I've been dedicated to working on issues in my community for over 20 years. And no, I'm not a career politician. As a matter of fact, I had 2 breaks between my terms, and I came back for more. So, I'm not going anywhere. I'll be involved as much as I can. What would be interesting about that opportunity is to give me more time outside of City Hall, to volunteer with more organizations, reconnect with my Elk Lodge brotherhood, sisterhood, and do good volunteer work through them. So, no, I'm committed to my community, and win, lose, or draw, I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere.
Absolutely, I'm going to continue to be involved in any way I can. As you said, planning and zoning might be an option now. But, I really, it's really opened my eyes to, that there's people there that need to volunteer. There's people that need to be listened to. and people that need to be taken very seriously. And we're all part of that community. So, you know, I'm asking for your vote, but if I don't win, I'm definitely not going away. And I will definitely be here to help the community and to serve the community.
Thank you. All right, we're at 1 minute closing remarks. That went by fast.
That did go by fast. I don't know if they feel that way, but that did go by fast.
Each of you, Tori, why don't you go first? 1 minute closing statement.
Thank you very much. Thanks again for being here, everybody. Thank you for you guys doing this work, and Allison for putting this on. I'm very proud of my 4 years in office. I am. I'm also very optimistic about the direction that we're heading. I'm hopeful for 2 more years to continue the good work that has been started. It takes a long time to get things done, and they are starting to get done. I want to keep improving our processes and our outcomes. I recognize that we have opportunity for improvement. That's why I'm still here working on this. And I appreciate a challenger. I appreciate somebody who wants to force these issues and have conversation. This is what this is about. I'm not backing down from it. I'm committed to my community. I'm honored to participate in this campaign. It's been an honor to serve my community. I'm seeking a final term for mayor to continue working for Aspen and with Aspenites. Some of my priorities: making a connected community for families, kids, and supporting our schools. That's number 1. Maintaining our quality of life and a livable, affordable, thriving community in Aspen. That's another priority for me. I'm asking for your vote. Vote Tori for mayor, please.
Thank you. Tracy.
Okay, well, I'm honored to be here. And, you know, I'm really proud of the support that I've received, and I'm here to roll up my sleeves and get things done. You know, businesses are networks of people. We're all structures within, you know, we're a structure part of the community where everybody needs to stand together and really stick together and make things go forward. I mean, it's really obvious to me anyway, and my supporters, that people in this town we're ready for a change. And I want to be one of those changes. And so I'm asking for your vote. I look forward to working with you. I look forward to working for you. And I really would appreciate your vote. Thank you very much.
All right, that concludes it. You guys, thank you so much for being here. Thank you to all the candidates. Thank you to Aspen Board Realtors, the Rotary Club of Aspen, the Aspen Chamber, and the YPN organization. Thank you guys all so much for being here.